Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for clicking on my video. Today I'm going to be playing with these two palettes. I'm doing this eyeshadow look and talking a little bit about the psychology and thought processes behind decluttering eyeshadow palettes. You know, I always think about putting something on my lips before I start, but then I'm terrible. I just seem terrible at matching my lip color to my eventual eyeshadow look because I never really have a firm plan. So it's easiest for me to match the lip color after the eyes are done. Because it's all about the eyes for me, that seems the best way to go. So usually I'll start my videos by putting on like chapstick or a gloss if I want something on my lips. Anyway, today I want to play with the Nomad, I want to play with the Garden of Juvia's palette, but there's no depth in here, so I thought I'd bring in Monteverde Cloud Forest from Nomad. There's a dark purple in here that I think I might use. I don't really have a plan. I just know I wanted to play with Juvia's, and I kind of want to keep it a little bit lighter, just like my previous video, because my tear duct on this side is still a little bit bothered, so I'm not planning on doing anything on the lower lash line. So I have already primed my eyes with the Glam Light Icing Primer. Everything I'm using, per usual, is linked down below. I'm really not sure what I want to do. My initial plan was to play in the purple tones of Garden of Juvia's and maybe this shade right here, which is a duochrome. This is a green-pink kind of shift. And then I thought I would deepen with this dark purple called Violet Saber Wing. But given that I'm not doing a lower lash line, which I feel, if I have a very light look, I don't mind skipping the lower lash line. I feel like I have fewer color options when I'm not using up that real estate, and I don't really want a heavy look if I can't finish it out, like fill it out with the lower area. So I tend to go a little lighter. That being said, I'm not sure that I want to use the depth in this palette, but I do want to use this palette. So maybe instead I'll keep it kind of lighter, on the lighter side of things, and use this shimmer instead. That could be fun, and it would work with Garden of Juvia's. So then it's a matter of which mattes do I want to use in Garden of Juvia's. That shimmer is kind of like a blue pinky purple kind of thing. Maybe I'll do these two, or maybe these two. I have no plan. Can you tell? Can you tell that I have no plan? All right. I think I'm gonna do the pink and purple. So with a medium blending brush, I'm just gonna do like a nice wash of color because I'm not planning on bringing in a lot of depth. First, I'm picking up Peony in Garden of Juvia's. And I think I'll start that over here. I think I'll just carry that through my inner crease area. I never do this. Like, I never start a look like this. Ever. But why not? You know, it's fun to try new things. I have seen other people do this. I know that Betty Jean does this. She'll often take her color and send it through the inner crease area just like this in this nice round circular motion. It's actually quite satisfying. It's quite satisfying, and it lends a nice soft spray of color there. I like it. I never do this, but I like the way that it feels and kind of like the way that it looks. I'm not gonna go through into the center of my crease. I think I'll just keep this right here. And then I'll go into Lilac U and do the same thing out here. I did clean off my brush, but I think the pink is a little bit heavier of a pigment than the lilac, so there might be a bit of crossover. Sorry, my palette is on the floor because I don't have a desk. Let me see if I can bounce it on my knee. Here's Lilac U. Just doing the same thing right here, this nice circular motion in the outer half of the crease. I have hooded eyes, so I'm making sure that I am getting on top of, on top of the hood at the base of the brow bone. I don't want to fully bury the color in the hood. I want it to be visible even when my eyes are open. This lilac shade needs to be built up a little bit, but it is a pretty color. I mean, it's a pastel palette. I mean, unless maybe it's Blend Bunny, you kind of have to build things a bit. Blend Bunny pastels are so pigmented. Sometimes often I put on too much and I have to try to backpedal. Like, oh my goodness, other pastels don't behave this vividly. They're still true pastels, but there is a ton of pigment in Blend Bunny pastels. So when I use other pastels, I feel like I have to work work them a little bit more just to get the color that I want, but they're also a lot more forgiving. Off my brush, going back into the pink and just filling that out a little bit more because it's pretty and I like it. And I'm not crossing over, I'm just letting them meet each other. They're close enough in tone and they're close enough in depth that I don't really need to blend them together. It's just they're butting up against each other. I mentioned in my previous video that I'm thinking about getting rid of a couple more palettes than I did in my previous declutter, just adding a few more in. And it made me think, when we do declutters, when we get rid of things, are we always basing it off of our feelings at the moment? Or do we genuinely think we don't need that item anymore? Like if you've outgrown a size of clothing and you pass on those clothes, it makes sense because you don't fit in them anymore, right? Like you can't use them anymore. And you might have to drastically change size up or down to fit in those clothes. So you might as well pass them along because that's just not what you're living right now. But for eyeshadow palettes, you know, we go through phases. Like maybe right now you're in a neutral phase, but you used to love color. So you still have a lot of colorful palettes, but you're really just feeling neutrals. Should you get rid of your colorful palettes? I mean, they do expire after some time. So are we holding on to old palettes because we think we'll use them in the future? Or for nostalgia or memories? Are we as neutral lovers just waiting for our color loving self to come back? Or are we as color lovers thinking that our neutral loving self will come back? Do you know what I mean? Like, as I consider getting rid of more palettes, I'm looking at the ones I'm considering and thinking, would I be getting rid of it because I don't like the formula or I don't like the color story? Well, that's not the case because at this point I like all the formulas in my collection except for the Jaclyn Cosmetics. That one's unimpressive. But the colors in that way, they catch me. I need to move on to the next color, so hold that thought. Now I'm going into Monteverde and picking up River Trail here. It's a blue-purple duochrome. Is it a multi? I think it's just blue and purple. So I'm gonna load this up on my flat brush and then I'll spray it. So let's start this in the center of the lid, and then if I don't think it's working with one of the colors, I can find a shimmer to bridge the gap. Just gonna put this here. Okay, this is pretty, and I'll put it on the whole inner half or so. So it's gonna cut up against the pink. But I do want, ooh, I put a little bit too much there. I do want a little bit more depth in the outer corner. So I'll just put this on the, I don't know, like 2/3 of the lid space, and then I'll fill in the outer corner a bit. Anyway, so I look at the palettes that I'm thinking of passing on and I say, it's not because of the formula, it's not because of the color story. Or have my tastes changed, like I've decluttered almost all glam light. So that is a formula thing. I'm just learning what I prefer, you know? I like a lighter, more sparkly shimmer, not necessarily wet or metallic, even though those are so impressive. I just don't like the visual weight of them. I prefer something that's lighter and more sparkly. Maybe brands that are similar to glam light are at risk, such as Beauty Bay. Would I consider getting rid of Beauty Bay palettes? And I have to ask myself, do I really want to be decluttering, getting rid of things that I used to love? Should I use, I think I'll pick up this darker purple here. It's called Sweet Lilac, and see how much depth it brings. Again, I want to keep this look overall lighter because I'm not going to add depth to the lower lash line, but I need a little bit of contrast and I need a little bit of bridging the gap from the shimmer to these mattes. So here's that shade. Anyway, when I think about passing along these palettes, do I think I'm going to regret it? At some point in the future, is that formula lover going to come back and be like, oh, I wish I had X palette again. Why did I get rid of that? Never should have gotten rid of it. It was a whim. It was a fancy. It wasn't thought out, you know, and then I'm out that palette and I'm not likely to spend the money to go get it again. But of course, at that point, 100 new gorgeous things would have come out. And if I really want to try those things, I can just, you know, I can get something new, which brings different excitement to me and a newer formula. You know, it's not as close to expiration if I bought it new. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense? I don't know. I was just looking at my collection, like, okay, well, maybe I should pass this one along. And then I had to consider, am I doing that with real purpose, or is it just me feeling overwhelmed by different things in my life, or frustrated that I have too much of this thing and I can't control this thing, so I'm just gonna get rid of something else that I can control? Is it a flight of fancy? Is it a whim? Is it impulsive, or is it well thought out? I added a little bit of the pink matte right here. And I think that is rounding this out a little bit better. So that's probably it, honestly, because again, nothing on the lower lash line. Just gently buffing and softening, and my heat just kicked on. So I'll go off camera and finish this up. All right, my friends, as you know, I didn't do anything in the waterline. This is the whole look after I've added mascara. On my lips, I'm wearing two different things. I am wearing the Italia Deluxe lip liner in the shade 1031 Deep Purple. I lined the lips and like kind of ish filled them in with just little dabs of color. Then I topped it with the ColourPop lip oil. This is Paper Pansy, and I just smoothed it all together and tried to merge those colors. So I think it's pretty. I also forgot to mention I am wearing the Aurora Glow Kit from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I put this purple on my cheek. I hope you can see that. It's lovely, and I forgot to mention it. I was tempted to just do more of a pastel purple sort of color on my lips, but it's not where I ended up. But it's nice. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on why you declutter. Do you declutter because you're feeling overwhelmed in other areas of your life and maybe eyeshadow palettes are a thing that you can control? Or is that the exact reason why you hold on to eyeshadow palettes? Do you declutter because you feel that you've really figured out what you prefer and you just get rid of everything else? I mean, I think that's where I am, and that's where I want to be. I don't want to hold on to stuff that I don't like or use. But I also had to be realistic and think, well, will I miss this palette? I actually have I don't know if it's a series or whatever. I've done several videos around the concept of, do I regret decluttering X palette? And never, I don't think I've ever said yes. I think once or twice I've said kind of, maybe, like I could see myself using it now, but there's the very real consideration that now it might be expired and it doesn't work as well. And so if over time I hone my preferences and figure out what I like, why I like it, which formulas I prefer, which brands I prefer, I almost never regret decluttering something if there was a good reason for doing so. And then if my preferences lean that way again, I can get something that is new. You know, by the time I look at the palettes I've decluttered and assess, do I wish I hadn't? There are so many more things on the market in better formulas or better formulations, or a brand has really stepped up their game and now their packaging's better or the formula's better or maybe better color stories. I don't know. I very rarely regret decluttering something, but I also don't want to be rash and just, throw it all to the wind if I'm feeling overwhelmed in some other area of my life. I hope that makes sense. I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject. The concept of decluttering is very interesting to me because I watch videos where people get rid of hundreds of palettes or own hundreds of palettes. So I'm really interested to see the different ways that people approach this subject. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for clicking on my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do let me know, of course, what you think of the eye look as usual, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.